Hi. For our group project, we've decided to do Planned Parenthood and discuss Planned Parenthood as a large nonprofit, their practices, their programs, and their finances. The mission statement of Planned Parenthood is that they believe in the fundamental rights of each individual throughout the world to manage his or her fertility, regardless of the individual's income, marital status, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, national origin, or residence. They believe that respect and value for diversity in all aspects of our organization are essential for the general well-being. We believe that reproductive self-determination must be voluntary and preserve the individual's right to privacy. They further believe that such self-determination will contribute to an enhancement of the quality of life and strong family relationships. In this presentation, we'll be discussing the ways that Planned Parenthood achieves their mission, from fundraising to educational programs to their financial statements and what that tells us about their fundraising, finances, and board of directors.
Margaret Sanger had a first-hand experience with women's health care growing up through her mother's challenges. Margaret's mother gave birth to 11 kids, had 7 miscarriages, and died at the early age of 50 due to tuberculosis. The accumulation of health problems present within her family led Margaret to have strong beliefs in women controlling their own bodies and ultimately led her to travel to Europe in pursuit of furthering her education on birth control. On October 16, 1916, Margaret Sanger, Ethel Byrne, and Fannia Mendel opened the country's first birth control clinic. 7 years later, Sanger opened the Birth Control Clinical Research Bureau and incorporated the American Birth Control League. These two organizations later merged to form the Planned Parenthood Federation of America.
The organization of Planned Parenthood is a 501c4 nonprofit or a social welfare organization. It is governed by an executive board and has local centers across the United States.
Planned Parenthood consists of an executive board and 56 other local boards across America. The executive president, Cecily Richards, leads the organization along with Chairman Naomi Aberle. The executive board is comprised of a chief operating officer, director of human resources, chief strategy officer, a chief technology officer, and 6 other professionals taking specific roles in the running of Planned Parenthood. The regional Planned Parenthood locations each have their own board and executive team reflecting the national positions. Globally, the organization partners with over 100 health organizations across Africa and Latin America, providing health care across a vast population, with emphasis on the most vulnerable and undeserved.
Next, we're going to take a look at Planned Parenthood by the numbers, both their financial statements and the numbers of people that they serve. So Planned Parenthood has an endowment of over $100 million, but this endowment is not one large endowment. It's actually comprised of 37 different individual funds, whether from individual donors, groups, and board members. So $22 million is permanently restricted and cannot be touched in their funds. $10 million is only temporarily restricted given as a planned gift by a donor, and $82 million, largely from boards of directors, is unrestricted and can be used at any time. However, the New York Prudent Management of Institutional Funds Act imposes a lot of guidelines in terms of how these funds can be invested, when interest can be drawn, and how the funds are governed in general by Planned Parenthood. However, Planned Parenthood also has over $40 million of expenses nationally. So these fundraising costs may be the $26 million that they spent this year in terms of marketing, reaching out to people, direct mail, and other strategies and vehicles. And then $19 million in 2015 was spent on administrative costs, which range from professional development to the people who work front desks to paying different staff at their national foundation. So these numbers may seem really big and like they comprise a ton of money when you're talking about a national organization. However, this year Planned Parenthood served over 2.4 million men and women. 80% of Planned Parenthood's patients in the U.S. are over 20 years old. In fact, 1 in 5 women in the U.S. will have visited a Planned Parenthood and been served by them, whether it's for a pap smear, a mammogram, or other reproductive related services. 1.5 million young people are also touched by their educational services, whether these take place at a health fair, or in a school or in a program setting at Planned Parenthood. And 4.2 million tests and treatments for sexually transmitted infections will be administered and were administered by Planned Parenthood in the past year. So in light of all of this, $100 million in endowment for a national organization may seem very large, but Planned Parenthood serves millions and millions of Americans every single year through educational services as well as healthcare services. Now, you may be wondering how Planned Parenthood best advocates and fundraises for their nonprofit and for their cause. They use many of the similar vehicles that we've talked about throughout the semester, including planned giving, annual gifts, and endowments. However, Planned Parenthood also offers a couple other benefits as vehicles for fundraising, including a workplace giving option that's actually a payroll deduction that comes out before you would ever get your check and would go to them. In addition, they also accept stocks. All of these vehicles work to reach different groups of people with different financial habits. Annual gifts could be as small as $20 a year, while an endowment obviously could be over $10 million. They use many strategies as well to help their fundraising be the best that it could be. Most notably was their online and social media presence, which encouraged donors to give that it would only take a moment when they were already online. In addition, 41% of funding for Planned Parenthood came from government grants in 2015, and they rely heavily on their grant writers to make sure that they're presenting the best information possible. They also use strategies like direct mail, special events, but these special events are planned by local chapters of Planned Parenthood to best suit the community they are in. In addition, there also is lots of personal solicitation. They have a chief development officer who oversees this process, and there's also corporate matching available for companies who may match philanthropic gifts given by their employees. One final way that Planned Parenthood uses that they strategize is using Amazon Smile, which is where Amazon gives proceeds from each purchase to a nonprofit directly. I think this amounts to about 0.9%, but that adds up a lot when you have several million people supporting you.
Planned Parenthood offers a wide range of programs and services for women and men. They provide abortion services where they provide factual, non-judgmental information about your options. Abortion referral, so if your Planned Parenthood doesn't provide abortions, they can talk with you about your options and connect you to other people in your area. Birth control for preventing pregnancy and to treat certain health problems. Emergency contraception. General health care to prevent illness, find problems that may need treatment, and help you stay healthy. HIV services that they can give you medications that can prevent HIV and help people living with HIV live longer. LGBT services to provide appropriate, high-quality health care for them, and including hormone therapy. Men's health services, where they can come to Planned Parenthood for health services addressing cancer, STDs, fertility, sexual dysfunction, birth control, and routine checkups. Patient education, they can provide clear, accurate, up-to-date information to help you understand and care for your health. Pregnancy tests that will help answer questions, provide support, and make sure you get the care that you need. STD testing, treatment, and vaccines, and women's services.
Planned Parenthood cannot reach the millions of people per year without the daily help of numerous volunteers. The organization's primary method to volunteer recruitment is through an application featured on their website. The application offers choices for volunteer work based off the individual's interest in working in the community, at home, or online. Most volunteers help directly at the health centers through contributing to office work, by assisting in the production of public events, and by spreading advocacy through various communication methods online and in person. Planned Parenthood has a volunteer policy set in place for its members, including patient-client confidentiality, confidentiality of operations, and consequences of violation of policy. If the volunteer fails to abide by the terms, the organization has legal jurisdiction to penalize and fine the individual.
As mentioned on the slide, Planned Parenthood has experienced backlash for years. When looking at the government side of things, there are many examples where Planned Parenthood has experienced this. When Sanger first got started, it was illegal to share birth control information, and her clinic in Brooklyn got shut down. In 1936, birth control rights were only for single people, and it took over 30 years to get them to apply to married couples. In 1965, Griswold versus Connecticut ruled that states couldn't deny the sale of contraception to married couples, and the Title X was created in 1970, which allowed public funding for family planning and sex ed programs. Roe versus Wade in 1973 determined that abortions were legal within the first 3 months of pregnancy, and there was a lot of backlash and laws requiring spousal approval and parental consent. The Hyde Amendment in 1976 made it illegal for federal public funding to pay for abortion services except in few circumstances. There was a lot of backlash between 1980 and 1990, which resulted in violence, which is bombings and arsons at the health centers. The Reagan and George H.W. Bush presidencies resulted in setbacks. In 1992, Planned Parenthood versus Casey allowed states to put limits on abortions like 24-hour waiting periods, and the Title X gag rule and the Mexico City policy, or global gag rule, which restricted federal funds from health care providers and organizations who discussed abortion with their patients. In 1993, the Clinton administration reversed these rules, and then the George W. Bush administration reinforced the global gag rule. There was also a ban passed on rarely used later stage abortions. He worked to establish new legal statuses for frozen embryos, and there was funding for abstinence-only sexuality education increased. In 2009, the Obama administration overturned the global gag rule and reaffirmed America's commitment to sexual and reproductive health at home and abroad. In 2010, the ACA was passed and extended access to health insurance, which requires insurance plans to cover birth control. Looking at the more positive side of things, Planned Parenthood has achieved many milestones throughout the years. In 1923, Sanger opened the Birth Control Clinical Research Bureau, and in the same year she incorporated the American Birth Control League, and those two combined to form Planned Parenthood Federation of America. In 1960, the FDA approved the sale of contraception pills, and International Planned Parenthood was founded. In 1965, the case Griswold versus Connecticut ruled that states couldn't deny the sale of contraception to married couples. In 1970, Title X established public funding for family planning and sex ed programs. In 1970, abortion was legalized in New York, and the first Planned Parenthood Health Center in Syracuse was the first to offer abortion services. In 1973, Roe v. Wade allowed abortion within the first 3 months of pregnancy in all 3 states. In 1987, Planned Parenthood began offering free or low-cost HIV testing. And in 1989, the Planned Parenthood Action Fund, which is a 501c4, allowed public education campaigns, grassroots organizing, and legislative and electoral activity. In 1996, Planned Parenthood launched their website, www.plannedparenthood.org, and in 2005, they started providing hormone replacement therapy for transgender patients. In 2006, Planned Parenthood could use the HPV vaccine, and in 2016 was 100 years after the first clinic was opened in Brooklyn. The combination of issues and milestones that Planned Parenthood has experienced has made the organization what it is today.
Hi, my name is Agnes Armstrong. Although I agree with Planned Parenthood's belief in the fundamental right of each individual to manage his or her fertility, I do not believe in doing so through unnatural means of contraceptives and abortion. Thus, I do not ultimately support the organization.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth, and I do support Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood helps thousands of people and is extremely vital to some people who need access to health care.
I'm India Clark. While Planned Parenthood is good at providing services that are beneficial for many people who are in need of them, I don't support abortions, so I do not support this organization.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I do support Planned Parenthood as a nonprofit. and getting to look at their financial statements and their strategic plans, I really felt like they had a good plan to empower people and provide great healthcare experiences that might not be available to people due to their given circumstances. I think when looking at the millions served every single year, I was really encouraged by the fact that that's something that is making a difference in communities, and so I would support Planned Parenthood.